having taken so long a time of the audience. Actually, the subject that has been given to me today is the agreement for water sharing. So here the agreement does not mean, or rather it is not limited to a document called agreement between the stakeholders of the river basin, but agreement is to be taken as an abstract noun, means how to arrive at a particular agreement so that the disputes can be preempted. So that is the main objective, and that's why my title slide here displays one caricature. Both the persons are, at the agreement, and they reflect in a very nice phraseology. Then it is agreed, I will try to get the best out of you, and you will try to get the best of me. So when these kind of sense is properly arrived at, we call it an agreement. So very epitomically, this cartoonist has put a caricature. So I thought I should use it in the context slide. When I was speaking to Pan Patil Saab and Dr. Chaskar, they suggested that I should present a case study wherein a basic theory that preventing redressal of water sharing related dispute through adjudication saves a lot of time and benefits of water are availed early can be properly put forth. So along with the case study, this principle is required to be put forth. So I have selected a case study of the Mahi Basin that has been actually shared by Gujarat and Rajasthan very aptly and very wisely. So the theory that has been behind the alternative dispute redressal is also very nicely applicable over here, and we have applied it very aptly, very wisely. And here another statement that I'm making is, in case the cost spent on delay in adjudication is counted, benefit of a probably to be availed larger share would be outweighed. And I'm citing here the example of Narmada Basin, wherein we took a very long time in getting the award of the NWDT, Narmada Water Dispute Tribunal. And that too, the award, if you see the entire process of arriving at an award, you will be convinced that it was facilitated through belatedly attained sense of cooperation amongst the stakeholder. Had we attained it earlier, large benefits of water would have been availed much earlier by all of us. And Gujarat, Maharashtra, Madhya Pradesh, and Rajasthan would have perhaps prospered much earlier. So the case study of Narmada Basin that I had put forth a month before or so, that gave us a very important lesson, that after all, it was the sense of cooperation amongst the stakeholders that facilitated the award of the tribunal to be so nice, so apt, so wise, maintaining the evenness of the keel. But still, if we minus the sense of cooperation amongst the stakeholders, then perhaps we would have ended up very badly in a soup kind of a situation. But finally, what was important was the cooperation amongst the stakeholders. So why the sense of cooperation being cultivated before the tribunal and not before approaching the tribunal, and how to gain this kind of mindset was, I think, the basic intention of Pan Patil Saab, and that's why I have selected this case study of the Mahi Basin. We have never gone to any kind of tribunal. Gujarat and Rajasthan, both the main stakeholders of the Mahi Basin, they have arrived at a consensus without any kind of dispute raised before any kind of adjudicating body like tribunal or the Supreme Court. And how nicely we have arrived at a consensus. That kind of a case study, along with the psychological background that is required to be had by all the stakeholders, that will be, I think, the today's discussion. So scientific approach to any subject helps attain solution with lesser difficulties is a fundamental principle. Be it the field of medicine, be it the field of politics, be it the field of water sharing, be it the field of any kind of challenge in the life, but scientific approach is needed. and that will reduce the burden of the difficulties that one has to wade through. And in some cases, it may help avoid delays. So attaining the benefits earlier by resorting to scientific approach is a must in any of the problems of the life. And accordingly, we the engineers are taught. We are always taught to resort to a scientific approach and to deploy a modular and structured approach to the problem so that solution is arrived at very early. That is how we are taught, and in that perspective, I shall put forth the entire subject. Basically, when we arrive at an agreement, in the background is a psychological setup, a mindset of all the stakeholders involved in the dialogue, in the sharing of water. So this is actually a psychological kind of a framing of the mind. And that's why here I am first giving you the psychological context. What is the context? Selfishness and greed of human beings, either individual or collective or both, tend to own something. Out of the greed, possessiveness, selfishness, that we the human beings tend to own something. Whether that thing that we want to own is tangible or otherwise, whether it is usable or otherwise, that becomes the root of the conflict. So many a time it happens that we don't know whether the thing is usable or not, but still our passion is to avail it, to possess it. And that's why many a time we enter into a futile skirmish. So the psychological context says that out of this kind of greed, the possessiveness, that the conflict arises. And we make, when analysis of the conflict, we come to know that it is a process that defines the subject of conflict and is also a beginning of negotiation. And negotiation is such that it further takes to another round of negotiation or a further set of negotiations through which the resolution is arrived, and that's why negotiation is termed as a key to resolution. Conflict can be perceived as a process as well as a product. And always, any stage of conflict, on the one hand, it is a process, on the other hand, it is a product. So psychologically, when we need to understand what is the conflict, we do need to understand there are two sets of people, or maybe more than two sets of people. They have different kinds of values, they have different kinds of needs, they have different kinds of goals, but still they don't enter into any kind of conflict so long as there is no exchange of information, thoughts, or objects amongst them. So when they generate some kind of information, external factors do add to it, and a perception of conflict is built. And when there is any kind of reaffirmation or escalation of the information or external factors, then the perception of conflict becomes stronger, becomes clearer, and then it takes the form of a threat. And when somebody perceives the element of threat against the value system, against the needs, against the goals that they subscribe to, then they enter into a stage of conflict. So this is how conflict at any stage is a process, and at the same time it is a product as well. Now I am taking you to the stages of conflict and the attitudes of the stakeholders into the conflict. I don't say the foes. I don't use the terminology foes. It is stakeholders to the conflict. So the attitudes of the stakeholders, basically attitudes are characterized by two different qualities of the mindset. One quality is the cooperativeness and the other quality is the assertiveness. So I have put them on two different axes. Cooperativeness I have put on the x-axis, assertiveness I have put on the y-axis. So the psychology says that when assertiveness is too high and the cooperativeness is too low in the mindset of the stakeholders, then it is called a stage of confrontation. Or both the groups will be tending to confront with each other. Assertiveness is high and cooperativeness is low. So this is the fundamental psychology point of view. When assertiveness is low and cooperativeness is also low, then they tend to avoid the conflict. When cooperativeness is very high, but assertiveness is low, then their mindset is accommodative. They accommodate each other. When medium level of cooperativeness and medium level of assertiveness is there, then there is an element of compromise. That okay kind of a thing. You are also good and I'm also good. That kind of thing. But still, the complete collaboration is still not there. But especially when the cooperativeness is very high and assertiveness is also high, then a stage of collaboration is struck in the mindset. So this is, basically the mental frame kind of a thing, that what kind of mental frame these groups are having or the stakeholders are having. So many a time it happens that, different kinds of stages will characterize a particular route for arriving at a stage of collaboration for the stakeholding states or the stakeholders into a conflict. Sometimes it may happen that, a path kind of this, that, the groups from the stage of confrontation will come here and, the assertiveness will go low and they will arrive at a stage of avoidance. Then with the passage of time from the stage of avoidance, the element of cooperativeness will escalate and they will reach the state of accommodation. Then, the cooperation remains as it is, that is high, and their assertiveness escalates and they reach the state of compromise. And again, assertiveness continues to attain a hike and they reach the state of collaboration. So that is how, they have arrived at a collaboration. There could be a more fortunate set of stakeholders who will straight away approach the stage of avoidance and they will go to the compromise instead of going to the accommodative state, and they can go to the collaboration. A more fortunate kind of a situation could also arise. Right from confrontation, they will go to the compromise, and from compromise, they will go to the collaboration, the shortest path they may take. And this is how, with the passage of time, the mindset will go on building, and that is how the stage of collaboration will be arrived at. And if the time is not favorable, the things may go adverse. From confrontation to avoidance to accommodation is all right. Even up to compromise they have reached. But from compromise to collaboration, they can't reach. And the time goes adverse to them. And the mental frame changes from assertiveness point of view and cooperativeness point of view. Cooperativeness becomes low and assertiveness becomes high. then again from the point of compromise, they will tend to go to the confrontation. So this kind of negative attitude can also be, a happening on the way to stage of collaboration. So psychology point of view, if we understand this slide, that how the attitude building should be there amongst the stakeholders and how should we approach the stages of conflict, then obviously both the stakeholders or three stakeholders in case it is, all of them will be mending one another's attitude, and they will be helping one another not to go in a adverse direction. So that is the duty of all the stakeholders during the stages of conflict. And that is the beauty of negotiation. When we enter into negotiation, if we have properly understood this slide and the psychological behavior of the human mind, then it will help us a lot in arriving at a stage of collaboration at a proper time. So this slide, I think, is very important. So in the bottom, I have given you a lesson that we have to go by chance and tact. It is a matter of chance as well as tact, because we cannot stay at a particular point of time. This group will be behaving like this. So it is actually driven by chance, but it also requires tact of other stakeholders, that they won't allow their counterparts to go adverse, either cooperativeness point of view or assertiveness point of view. And any path could take us stage by stage to destination. So our path of reaching this collaboration state could be any. Depends how the time facilitates us and how we facilitate one another. So this is very important that way. Now, let us understand what are the precepts for building of the attitude. This is again very important slide, psychology point of view. Both positive and negative consequences may occur depending on how the conflict is managed. And water sharing is actually speaking a conflict management. Results are likely to be better with effective engagement rather than avoidance. So as I told you earlier, stage of avoidance is good enough. It is better than the confrontation stage. But avoidance is merely required to be perceived as a sojourn, a stage of rest for some time. To that extent, avoidance is good. But all the time remaining into the stage of avoidance is not good. And that's why active engagement of all the stakeholders is very much required. Third precept is motivation and reinforcement through acknowledgement enhances cooperation. The behavioral science fundamental, that motivation to other stakeholders and reinforcement of the positive attitude of other stakeholders by us is needed to enhance the cooperativeness. And if you see, the level of assertiveness, if high, is not all the time good. But level of cooperativeness high, if you remember the earlier chart, it is all the time good. So this is how cooperativeness weighs higher than the assertiveness in the entire process of the conflict management or the negotiation. Behavioral, cognitive, and emotional skills are required for conflict management. Now, this requires some kind of professional training and professional kind of an experience as well. That how to mend our behavior, how to mend our cognitive skills, and how to maintain our emotional skills. And this is required on every footstep in our life as well. Even while when we are growing our small kids or say our grandchildren, then also these kind of skills are very much required. And that's why all the experts of psychology, they say that behavioral, cognitive, and emotional skills are the core of your life. That is the core of the life science. The same way self-awareness makes one reasonable and rational. Mostly it happens that all the confrontations, they take place out of some kind of lack of reasonability or rationality, and that is arising out of lack of self-awareness. And this self-awareness is, some kind of a product of self-assessment. When we are aware, obviously we must have made a self-assessment of. And once we make the self-assessment of our own selves, then we will never become unreasonable or irrational. That is the fundamental, and that's why all the time when people are engaged into a negotiation, they are required to be in the state of self-awareness. This is what the psychology emphasizes on. Neutral environment is inevitable. Neutral means there should not be any kind of prejudicial proposition from our side, that we are, when entering into a negotiation, while we leave our room, we shall be gaining so and so, so and so, so and so. This kind of targeted approach is also called a prejudicial approach in the negotiation skill set. And that's why it is required to be avoided. It might be good in some cases, but especially in the negotiation state, it is never good. It is never preferred. Freedom of negotiators tapers down the affirmativeness. Here, in the chart I have shown you that affirmativeness is neither good nor bad. It is good or bad in the context of level of cooperativeness. If the cooperativeness is high, affirmativeness is always better to be had. But all the time, affirmativeness is not a good characteristic. And that's why when there is a freedom with the negotiators, when they are not given target by the political masters, then they will be free from the prejudices. And their affirmativeness means towards their side affirmativeness will taper down, and that will help the final destination to be arrived at early. So these are the fundamental precepts for building of attitude, especially in the conflict management related to the water. Fine-tuning the attitude on both the sides periodically is the key to direct negotiation. This is again a principle of behavioral science. Always try to fine-tune the attitude on all the sides before you take up the thread of further negotiation. So what is the skill that is required to be deployed? Reiteration of shared and exclusive interest is important in enhancing the cooperativeness. When we are talking of shared interest, obviously we come to the same page. And when we are talking of exclusive interest, means the interest which are limited to individual stakeholder, but it is not in the conflict with other stakeholding groups. That is called exclusive interest, mutually exclusive interest. And when we are talking or reiterating about this exclusive interest, though we are on the same page, we reinforce the attitude of each other, and that builds up the sense of cooperativeness. Now these are the stages of negotiation. Earlier I discussed the stages of conflicts, and these are the stages of negotiations that I am underlining here. So the first stage in the cyclical mode is the definition of the problem and interest. Obviously, when we try to define the problem and interest, it will be in a crude form. But still there will be some kind of definition, there will be some kind of flocculated shape of the problem and interest. Maybe it is not so clear, but it's flocculated kind of a definition of the problem and interest as well. Then the second stage will be the identifying conflict, exclusive and shared interest. This is the second stage. Identify conflicting, excluding and shared interest. Means there will be several interests with each of the stakeholding group. Every group's interest can be enumerated and they can be categorized. Which are conflicting with other groups, which are exclusive to that particular stakeholder, and which are shared amongst the stakeholders. So three categories: conflicting, exclusive and shared. Okay, let us categorize them in the second stage. Then we should focus on the shared and exclusive interest. When we clearly discuss all the shared and exclusive interest, the sense of cooperativeness will escalate automatically. And sometimes it may happen that some interest is neither purely exclusive, nor purely shared, nor purely conflicting. It could be a mix of it. And when there is any kind of a mixed situation of the interest, we should try our level best to put it into exclusive group of interest. Why I am saying so? Because severity point of view, it is the mid-level. And this kind of mix should be put into the mid-level. Because it will neither allow you to go on any of the extreme. It will not allow you to go too sanguine, or it won't allow you to go too much pessimistic. And when this kind of constructive mindset, but non-committal kind of an approach is there, then you remain always open-minded. Then in the next stage, we need to develop and explore the options. Once the interests are properly categorized, then we can explore the options. And with the negotiations, dialogues, several options could be worked out. All the groups will be having its own option to be put forth. And we can enumerate all the options. There will be pros and cons with each of the options that also should be enumerated. Then we can evaluate the options with probable outcomes. Once the enumeration of the options are there, all the options will be having its own pros and cons. They could be deliberated with open mind, and their evaluation could also be made. That if we do like this, then what will be the outcome? What is the positivity and what is the negativity? Let us think over that. And then, we can move towards the solution. We can pass through the stages of attitude that I showed you in the graph. We can have one stage ahead into the stage of conflict. And again, we can enter into the first stage, that is definition of problem and interest. And here there will be a better definition of the problem and interest as compared to what we begin with. So this is how the cyclical process of negotiating the problem could take you gradually to different stages of conflict. And finally, that will guide you to the stage of collaboration. So this is how the negotiations be done, and that will be helpful to us. So water sharing related conflicts initiate with the deficit issue on all the sides. Fundamentally is this, that when you start deliberation on the water sharing, all the stakeholders will be narrating this issue that they are deficit regions of the basin. Even on the Brahmaputra side, when somebody is negotiating, he will be tending to say that his region is on the deficit side, I'm sure. And this remains always the root cause of the conflict. So, bona fide need is very difficult to be defined, truly speaking. And so is the problem with the definition of surplus. Who is surplus part of the basin is equally difficult to define. And therefore, it is difficult to understand what is really usable. So the line of demarcation between usable and non-usable, between surplus and deficit, is too difficult to draw. And that's why water sharing mainly veers around surplus and deficit terms. And all the conflicts, they arise of surplus and deficit terms. And there cannot be any clear definition simply because bona fide need is difficult to be defined. So now I am taking you into this context, that how we shared Mahi water with Rajasthan. Both of us are the deficit parts of the basin. So this is the Mahi basin. And actually speaking, it emerges out of Vindhya range of the mountains on the one side and Aravalli ranges on the other side. And this basin is confined between the two mountain ranges, Vindhya and Aravalli. And if you see here, the emergence of this Mahi from here, it emerges. And somewhere here is the position of the Mahi Bajaj Sagar Dam in Rajasthan. This is the present situation that I'm talking of. And the water is collected into the basin like this, and it travels like this path. And finally, it comes over here into this Kadana Dam, which is located in Gujarat. This Mahi Bajaj Sagar is in Rajasthan, Kadana is in Gujarat. And then this river gorge allows the water to flow through, and it merges into the sea that is called Gulf of Campe. So this is the path of the water. This is broadly speaking the basin. The length of this basin is 583 kilometer, and it is quite big a basin. So what we experienced is that water sharing is politically a very sensitive subject, but takes the toughest test. Patil Sahab, is it visible? Hello?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Now you are visible and audible also.
Yes. So I'm sorry for the interruption because of some
Yes.
technical snag. Actually, what we experienced is that water sharing is politically too sensitive a subject, but it takes the toughest test of the sensibility of the water managers. Handling political impetuousness on the one side and advancing towards the stages of solution through various stages of attitude of the other party require a special act. This is the toughest lesson that we have learned. On the one hand are the impetuous politicians, and on the other hand, passing through different stages of the conflict and arriving at a particular solution. That was, the real test of the time for we, the water managers in those days. So I'm talking of early 60s. Actually, we started, the negotiations with Rajasthan in 1961 because Gujarat got separated from the Bombay state or the Bruhat Mumbai Rajya on 1st of May 1960. So soon thereafter, harnessing water resources, whatever available are, was our primary requirement. As we, Gujarat, are 5% geographically, population point of view, we are 5% of India. But from water resources point of view, we are just 2.25% of India's. So we have India's 2.25% of water resources, whereas 5% population and 5% geographical area. So the challenge of water management is very tough with us. And that's why we thought, as now we are a independent state, we should have our own water resource management. So in 61, we started dialogue with Rajasthan. A primary treaty was entered into 60 itself. But how to harness water of Mahi and benefit both the states was the moot objective. And we made the dialogues in the same fashion as I taught you theoretically. Mahi Basin was decided to be harnessed in the Gujarat side by constructing a Kadana dam with the FRL 419 feet. And whatever the cost is to be incurred will be fully paid by Gujarat was the first proposition. Now you will say me that why should I not go to the beginning of the basin part, that is Rajasthan part, and not talk of the Baswara Dam or the Mahi Bajaj Sagar Dam first? Because the psychologically, as I told you, first thing is required to be clarified that what are the exclusive interest and what are the shared interest. They should be focused first. So because this Kadana Dam was exclusive to Gujarat and had no impediment on the way to Rajasthan, we decided first that what water storage should be there with Gujarat and what should be the apportionment of the Gujarat in the downstream. So Kadana was required to be constructed at FRL 419 feet with respect to the mean sea level. And that would suffice the reservoir size and the apportionment to this to Gujarat. So this as an exclusive interest was decided first. It was also decided that when Mahi command area within the Gujarat state would receive Narmada water, a part of it, that is a part of Kadana Dam water, will be diverted to Rajasthan, and appropriate cost would be decided subsequently at that point of time that should be paid by Rajasthan to Gujarat. This was again decided. And here, there was no confrontation that in case Gujarat portion of the command area of Mahi receives water from Narmada, why to take the dual advantage by Gujarat? So Gujarat was open that way, and we decided to enter into this kind of clause that in case we get Narmada water in future, we shall be releasing that much water from Mahi for the benefit of upper portion of the Rajasthan and the border of the Gujarat as well. With appropriate cost albeit, whatever sharing takes place between Gujarat and Rajasthan, appropriate cost sharing will also be taking place in future. But exact proportion was not decided at that point of time. That was left on the future based upon the availability of the Narmada water. So this much portion we cleared first, and then we entered into the second round. That Baswara Dam in Rajasthan portion will be built with FRL 921 feet. And here the 921 was divided into two parts, 915 plus 6. I'm coming to that point. What is the 915? 915 was decided as per the storage requirement of Rajasthan to harness the apportionment from the Mahi Basin. So 915 was the basic requirement. Power cost, because the main objective of Rajasthan was power, and secondary requirement was of the water. So power cost that was arrived at rupees 1250 per kilowatt in those days. And in case total cost of the dam with respect to 915 feet of height exceeds rupees 14 crore, cost of power will be revised. Now the cost of the dam with respect to FRL 915, that is the basic height, that cost will be shared by Gujarat and Rajasthan into 40:9 ratio. Because the total water utilization to be made was 40 TMC by Gujarat and 9 TMC by Rajasthan. As it was the main objective of generating hydropower, obviously the water will come down to Gujarat, and that's why we were benefited more as compared to Rajasthan from water point of view. So we would be availing 40 TMC of water, and Rajasthan will be availing 90 TMC of water. So the cost was also decided to be shared in the same ratio, 40:9 with respect to 915 feet of the height. That was the basic height. Now the question here came, when Rajasthan is generating hydropower, why to avoid the cost of the hydropower in the cost sharing? Only on the basis of the water utilized, the cost sharing has been made. So Rajasthan is taking advantage of water as well as advantage of hydropower. But hydropower is not considered in the cost sharing. Why it is so? So again, I am taking you back to the slide of the psychology, that this question was taken up from our side, that is Gujarat side. Finally, during the process of negotiation, it was decided that Kadana can also have the hydropower. Just as Mahi Bajaj Sagar has hydropower, Kadana could also generate some hydropower. So hydropower is actually available to Rajasthan as well as to Gujarat, albeit not in equal proportion. But truly speaking, hydropower will be more with the Rajasthan and water will be less available to Rajasthan, whereas with Gujarat, water will be more and hydropower will be less. So total denominational summation, hydropower plus water, if you count with the Rajasthan and with the Gujarat, both of the states will be on the equal footing. Rajasthan is getting more hydropower, less water. Gujarat is getting more water and less hydropower. So both are on the equal footing. And that's why, so long as the cost sharing is concerned, because Gujarat is having tremendous benefit of the water, that is 40 TMC, the water should be considered as the main factor for cost sharing. So we decided to go for 40:9. But you can appreciate what kind of complexity into this decision making we would have hit in those days. And it was deliberated at length, but finally we sorted out into like this. Now the cost of the dam between Gujarat and Rajasthan was decided to be shared for basic height of 915 feet. Rajasthan thought that if they are permitted to raise the dam by 6 feet, then they will be having an additional storage potential of 7 TMC. And in case they get this additional 7 TMC of storage, in the lean years, they could generate more power. But obviously, whatever will be the release from the hydropower will come to Gujarat, and Gujarat will also be benefited. But here for the 6 feet, the cost was decided to be paid only by Rajasthan, and Gujarat was spared out of this cost sharing. Now again the deliberation took place. When Rajasthan is creating a storage potential of 7 TMC, aimed at generating some hydropower even during the lean period, the water will come down to Gujarat. Then why not Gujarat should pay for this additional 6 feet as well? But agreement says that the water sharing should be with the 40:9 only. Be it additional 7 TMC water or it is 915 feet related storage. But water sharing should be 40:9. And this additional power that Rajasthan can generate will be of its own. And that's why the cost was decided to be borne completely by Rajasthan. There is a long deliberation for this decision. But finally, we decided to strike a balance, and that is how this proposition came into being. And finally, when Narmada water would be available in the Mahi command in the Gujarat side, the water will be spared for the upper portion of the Rajasthan from the Mahi basin, from the Kadana dam. But the cost will be paid by Rajasthan to Gujarat. So there will be a reimbursement to Gujarat. That was also decided. The amount was not decided because it was a futuristic kind of a provision in the agreement. But this is the basic agreement that we entered into in 1966. 5 years we took in active deliberations and negotiations. But finally we came out with this agreement. We never approached any kind of tribunal. We never approached Supreme Court. And both the states, by consensus, entered into this agreement. And this was one of the initial agreements that took place in the history of India. And without taking any kind of support from the judiciary, when this consensus arrived at, in itself it became a landmark kind of an agreement. We completely preempted the issues and disputes, and fully by consensus we entered into. Then, in those days, as you know, financial crunch was a big issue for the water sectors. Government of India was encouraging storage building, but dams were required to be constructed from the funds of the state only. So here the bottleneck was of the fund. What we learned out of this, that once deficit issue narrated by both the sides, context for acknowledgement occurs. This is the fundamental lesson. When all the stakeholders they cry out about the deficit that they are facing, obviously they will start acknowledging each other's crisis. It is obvious process. And here is the process that we have also gone through in the Mahi Basin watershed. But we learned fundamentally one thing, that water being a cyclical resource, estimation of annual availability with variations is the most promising beginning of the deliberation. As I told you, there was 49 TMC of water annually available with the 75% of dependability in the Mahi Basin. We decided it to apportion in 40:9 ratio. 40 Gujarat and 9 Rajasthan. We deliberated with this point, that what is the water availability? And accordingly, we decided the size of Kadana and then the size of the Baswara or the Mahi Banjara Sagar. So this is the most promising beginning for all the stakeholders to start deliberation. Then one more lesson we learned. Implementation of agreement is also not less challenging a task. And that requires a very high level of cooperativeness as an attitude. Generation signed an agreement, and it is the next generation to make implementation of. It may happen. And that exactly happened here in the Mahi Basin. One entire generation evanesced from the horizon of the history, and the next generation came to take over the agreement and start sense of cooperation amongst the stakeholders, an institutional mechanism provided for eschewing implementation state disputes. This is the fundamental thing. So how the implementation was taken up by the next generation that I am now taking you to. We started building Kadana Dam. As I told you, fund crisis was tremendous with both the states. And we started constructing Kadana. It was sometime, 69 that we started Kadana. After agreement, 3 years we had to spend for the geological investigation, design of the dam, collection of the fund, etc. We started. But then we hit one problem, and that was the land acquisition and rehabilitation to take place into the Rajasthan portion. Kadana was in Gujarat, but reservoir being too big, submergence went into Rajasthan side as well. And when the detailed design was done and the survey was also carried out, we learned that a big amount of private land, including civic amenities, religious places in the Rajasthan portion, they were to go into submergence of this Kadana reservoir. And there was one very sensitive issue that hit us, protection of one Dargah and one Mataji temple at Galiakot in Rajasthan. These two religious shrines were very important for the Hindus and Muslims. And you can understand how sensitive this issue could be. So we decided that Rajasthan being the state government and the land acquisition, water, rehabilitation, law and order, all were falling into the state list of the constitution. These issues will be addressed by government of Rajasthan, and whatever expenditure they need to incur on this addressal will be paid by Gujarat. So we entered into a supplementary agreement in 1975 when the construction of Kadana was half the way. Construction of the Kadana was half the way. And we entered into an agreement in 1975 that was called supplementary agreement. And we decided that government of Rajasthan will take care of all this, and we, the Gujarat, will be compensating all the expenditure. A high power committee was appointed by Government of India for this task in 1974. When Dr. Jagjeevan Ram was the irrigation minister in those days, under his leadership, a high power committee was appointed. Albeit we, both the states, we requested Government of India to appoint a committee because after all it was an interstate issue. Rupees 8.1 crore as the cost of land acquisition and rehabilitation was decided to be paid by Gujarat. Just imagine, 14 crore was the cost of the Mahibazar Sagar Dam and 8.1 crore was the cost of land acquisition and rehabilitation to be paid for construction of Kadana. Just imagine the proportions. But still, Gujarat said, okay, we don't want to go into the cost. We shall pay it, but do it on our behalf. Moreover, protection work of Dargah and Mataji temple at Galiakot was also decided to be carried out by Gujarat. And that was done by Gujarat State Construction Corporation. They invited contracts in consultation with the Rajasthan government, and that cost was additionally to be borne by Gujarat. Moreover, this agreement provides for future maintenance of both these religious shrines to be taken up by Gujarat only. And we are religiously honoring this responsibility periodically. So this is how a supplementary agreement between Rajasthan and Gujarat that was inked in 1975. Now, here are the important lessons. During construction, the issues got surfaced, but they could be sorted out without any delay because the foundation was of cooperation and not of the conflict. So whatever issues came during the construction, we could sort out as our foundation was very strong and that was made up of cooperation. Second thing, one crucial provision went into non-fulfillment, and that was the provision underlying availability of Narmada water into the Mahi Command of Gujarat portion, triggering to transfer of surplus Mahi water to the upper portion in the Rajasthan. Our NWDT award itself said that command area of Gujarat will be limited to 1.8 million hectare and Mahi command will not be served by Narmada water. So the crucial provision remained unfulfilled. We could not give Narmada water to the Mahi command, and that's why there was no surplus water in the Mahi basin thereafter. So there was no question of transferring this water to the upper portion or upper stretches of the Rajasthan side. Was of cooperation. Both the states, Gujarat and Rajasthan, are still honoring Narmada award as well as Mahi treaty between Rajasthan and Gujarat. And till date, we are honoring both of them. But finally, this non-fulfillment of the crucial provision that made a point for Rajasthan to be a stakeholder into Narmada dispute. As I told you during Narmada dispute, the moot point was Rajasthan was not a co-riparian state in the Narmada basin. Then why should it be considered as a party? But all the three states, Gujarat, Madhya Pradesh and Maharashtra, consented unanimously that Rajasthan would be treated as a party and Rajasthan will be receiving 0.5 million acre feet of water from Narmada undisputedly, because this Mahi treaty is not getting fully honored because of this above. So Rajasthan finally made it point to be a stakeholder into Narmada basin, and they got 0.5 million acre feet of water from Narmada as well. So on the one hand, they were at loss in the Mahi. On the other hand, in the Narmada, they were at the benefit. So finally, all the benefits and losses were very nicely balanced. And that's why I'm saying here that the sense of cooperation that finally carved out a very beautiful, a flamboyant victory for both the sides of the river. Now, on the operation side of this Mahi basin, we operate it jointly. That is Rajasthan and Gujarat. We operate it jointly. We have more than 60 observatories or the stations, rain gauge stations, weather stations, river gauge stations. Many of them are installed by Rajasthan and Gujarat, and some are installed by Central Water Commission as well. And Central Water Commission is the coordinating agency for this. Our coordination of the basin, as done by Central Water Commission, is actualized by 2 meetings every year. One is the pre-monsoon and the other one in the post-monsoon. So whatever the issues came to the surface during the monsoon, they will be discussed in the post-monsoon, and the solutions will also be discussed so that the next monsoon will be a better experience. So this is how we are working closely with the Central Water Commission, not only closely but coherently. And we have also developed a group dialogue through social media. So whosoever opines something is put in the social media, everybody appreciates it. And finally, a joint decision is taken up. So generation over generation, we are handing over the Mahi basin operation. Agreement was done by one generation, construction was by the next generation, and then 3 generations have, already taken up the thread of operation. And that is how this very nice example of results of cooperativeness, I thought I should put forth. And this is the map of the Mahi basin, how the hydrological and hydrometeorological network is established in the Mahi basin, well scattered, quite all right to handle any kind of crisis in the basin. And that is how we are very nicely and wisely operating this Mahi basin. Now I am coming to the essentials of the agreement. And as you know, what quality should be there in your agreement in order to hand it over to other generation, even the operation to the subsequent generations. So it is the water availability, water sharing, variations in the quantum of water are required to be defined clearly into the agreement. Land acquisition, rehabilitation should duly be envisaged and defined. Power sharing should also be defined in the agreement. Cost sharing should also be defined very clearly in the agreement. Recurrent expenditure, if any, should also be shared judiciously and be a part of the agreement. Then institutionalization of review and implementation should also be a part of the agreement. Just as we had to put forth a committee in 1974 under leadership of Dr. Jagjeevan Ram, the irrigation minister those days, if it is a part of your original agreement, then a lot of time could be saved. Then all the futuristic provisions, like we did in the Mahi basin, that in case Narmada waters are transferred to the Mahi command area, then how the surplus Mahi water be transferred to Rajasthan upper portion. So that kind of futuristic provision should also be a part of your agreement. And then your agreement is called a mature agreement or a comprehensive agreement. So these are the essentials of the agreement in order to make it successful at the implementation stage as well. And now I am coming to the conclusions. that, negotiation is the key to success in water sharing. Bloodshed is not the right option. Yeah, in the feudal stages, all right, human being was tend to make the bloodshed even for paltry causes. But now, because we are civilizationally developed a society, we should resort to negotiations to the best possible extent. Then scientific and reasonable approach that help you converge fast to the solution. Scientific and reasonable approach that I told you earlier. Instead of going into this surplus or deficit, because surplus or deficit can never be defined clearly, we should focus on the reasonability and rationalism on both the sides. Then that will help us a lot. In the entire world, in the no water sharing treaty or award, surplus or deficit has been clearly defined. Nor is it a cup of tea for anybody. And that's why we should focus on reasonability and rationalism, as I understand. Sanity and sincerity will form cogent proposition. So never, we the water fraternity, water managers, can afford to lose our sanity or sincerity. That is fundamental. Then water is a community resource. It is nobody's fief. We must understand. And therefore, sharing is must amongst the stakeholders. And that's why in my very first lecture, I had underlined the definition of riparian. What is riparian? Living on the same bank of the river is the right meaning of the riparian. And when we are living together on the same bank of the river, we must have a tendency to share the water, as it is a community resource and nobody's fief. Agreement is preferred to dispute resolution through tribunal, as early benefits are available by agreement and not by adjudication. If you count 24 years long struggle for Narmada water sharing amongst Maharashtra, Madhya Pradesh, Gujarat and Rajasthan, just imagine if 24 years back we had gone into an agreement like this, Mai, and started harnessing the benefits of Narmada waters, then what would have been our presence? We would have been 20 years ahead of the time, I'm sure. But alas, we attained wisdom at a later stage. Agreement should address all the issues deliberated. This is the fundamental of the agreement. Otherwise, it is called a stage of avoidance. And that is always a stage of sojourn. It is not the solution, mind well. Implementation and issues during implementation implementation and issues during implementation. They all are very important and we should never neglect them. As the issue came on the way to Katana, land acquisition in the Rajasthan portion, our sincerity was not lowered down. We were ready to address those issues. So what I mean to say here, that during the implementation, there will be several issues to come to the surface and we should be ready to address them. It is not that once the agreement is done, you are done. During the implementation, there will be so many issues to come to your way and you must be ready to address those issues as well. So the sense of cooperativeness is required to be maintained in all the stages: negotiations, agreement, implementation, and operation of the basin as well. At all the stages, cooperation is a must. It is a prerequisite. And then only can you share the water effectively and to the benefit of all the stakeholders. That is what I wanted to underline. And here, I'm remembering Bertrand Russell, who said the only thing that will redeem mankind is cooperation. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for giving such a detailed and informative presentation, talk on the topic of sharing of water, agreement sharing of water. Now we will start question answer sessions.
I think there are some questions in the chat box.
Yes, there are two
So
questions
yes, so
in chat view.
I'm addressing the chat box questions. One
Okay.
question is that when individual and institutional spirits are different, do you think such agreements between states follow behavioral concepts? And number two, is there any involvement of government of India in the bilateral agreement of 1966? See, I'm addressing first the question number two. There was no involvement of government of India in the bilateral agreement of 1966. It was purely a bilateral agreement of between Rajasthan and Gujarat. Government of India came into picture only in 1974 when the land acquisition related issues cropped up. Number one, when individual and institutional spirits are different, it is again behavioral concept that will come to your way. How the behavioral changes take place, that will depend on what kind of attitudinal level you have. So my answer is that when the behavioral aspects are challenging, try to remain in the stage of sojourn, that is avoidance. Once you feel that now the atmosphere is opposite to the solution, then only you march ahead towards another stage of the conflict resolution. Otherwise, enjoy the state of sojourn, that is avoidance, that is my advice. Another question is you also, I think there are some advisories from the Water Academy.
No.
Any question further?
Any more questions, please?
Yes, one suggestion is that I should repeat the water sharing between Rajasthan and Gujarat 40:9. So what I mean to say, I told you that our beginning of the negotiation should be with the definition of the problem and the interest, and the fundamental question that should come to the top of the table should be the water availability in the basin. So the water availability in the Mahi basin with the 75% annual dependability came out to be 49 TMC in those days. Now when 49 TMC came to be on the card, we decided that what should be the apportionment between Gujarat and Rajasthan. Now Rajasthan emphasized on the hydropower, that they required more power. Okay. So we decided that there should be a dam at higher elevation with a sufficient reservoir height with Rajasthan, and Gujarat will be having, a what you can say a medium size of dam. So the regular release from Rajasthan hydropower station will be availed to Gujarat, and we will be requiring a lower size dam as compared to Rajasthan. So our FRL was lower and their FRL was higher. So because Rajasthan emphasized on hydropower, they were given height of the dam more. And because they required more kind of release from the hydropower, we emphasize that we will be content with the more water. So it is called a symbiotic relationship. What Rajasthan wants is hydropower. And what is the obvious outcome of hydropower is water. And we, Gujarat, required water. Obviously, so, it is like a story of a blind and a lame man. There is one story that there was one lame person and there was one blind person. Both of them were very eager to attend one very good festival that was a Mela. So how to go into the Mela? Because the blind man did not know as to how to approach the Mela site, and the lame could not walk. to the Mela side because he was dismembered. So both of them met together. The blind man said that, the lame should take a ride on his shoulder. He will walk according to the direction shown by the lame person. So lame person had eyes, but the blind person had legs. So legs and eyes both were utilized in the benefit of the both. So the same way we utilize the requirement of hydropower with the Rajasthan and requirement of water with the Gujarat. And accordingly, we decided to come into a relationship which is called a symbiotic relationship. So the hydropower release will come to Gujarat, and that water will be stored in Kadana and utilized by Gujarat. So that is how the symbiotic relationship was established, and we decided to go for 40:9. Out of 49 TMC availability in the Mahi Basin annually, 40 TMC would be utilized by Gujarat and 9 TMC will be utilized by Rajasthan. But all the hydropower that they generate in Rajasthan side will be theirs. That is how we decided, and that is how the agreement was arrived at. So this is how, repeating the sharing of water between Rajasthan and Gujarat. There is one more thing that Rajasthan and Gujarat issue solved within department without court. Is this because the available water is more than required volume? Why not the same is happening in Kaveri and Krishna waters? Dr. Selva Balan has asked this question. Actually speaking, both of us are deficit basins. Truly speaking, Rajasthan is also a deficit basin. Gujarat is also a deficit side of the basin. Mahi basin itself is not too big a basin. 49 TMC is not as big as Kaveri or Krishna. You can just, take the stock of the situation. So this is too small a basin as compared to Kaveri and Krishna. But here both the states are deficit on the Mahi basin. But here we decided that what should be the priority of both the states. So the priority is because we are not conflicting. Though we were deficit basins, we could decide apportionment of water like this, and that is how the agreement came into being. In case Kaveri and Krishna, you want to go to an agreement, you need to explore on all the sides, entering into the negotiation cycle as to what are your problems and what are your interests. And accordingly, I'm sure that if the wisdom prevails over all the sides, then I'm sure that, we can sort out the most difficult problems like Kaveri and Krishna as well.
Thank you, sir. Any more question, please? Any more questions, please?
Yes, sir, I am Dr. Vijay Kumar from NIH Kakinada.
Please.
I am audible?
Yeah, you are audible.
Yes.
Please.
Sir, for example, the Krishna Tribunal is there and Andhra Pradesh is bifurcated into Andhra and Telangana.
True.
Now they are tending to approach the tribunal. What is your suggestion, sir, for a quick resolution?
See, I told you in my Narmada Basin's water sharing history that the same kind of situation we have waded through. When the water sharing was on the card, in 1960, 1st of May, there was a division of the Bruhad Maharashtra, and there was a Maharashtra and Gujarat separated out. And then the water sharing became too complicated. But finally, when we approached the tribunal, the interests were well defined. And the same way, Telangana and Andhra Pradesh need to well define their interest before the tribunal. And that is the best way. And if possible, they should sit together, that is Andhra Pradesh and Telangana, before approaching the tribunal. They should decide what should be their joint proposition. And if they make a joint proposition before the tribunal, then the issues could be easily sorted out, just as we did. We sat with Maharashtra, we sat with Madhya Pradesh and decided that Rajasthan should be given 0.5 million acre feet of water. That's it. We all the three decided jointly. The same way we decided that Maharashtra should avail 0.25 million acre feet of water from Narmada Basin. And we approached the tribunal that this is our decision by consensus, and tribunals, all the issues were dropped from the list of framed issues. So this is how Andhra and Telangana could also do, and they could eschew I think, several bones of contention. So this is my advice to both of them.
Thank you, sir. Okay, friends, more questions? Can we stop here? Okay, I'm giving thanks to Sri Kapadia sir for giving such a informative, excellent presentation on this topic of agreement water sharing. Thank you, sir.
I'm also grateful to.
thanks to
Yes.
I am again thanks to all officers of this ministry as well as the different water resources departments. Thank you, friends. Thank you.
Sir, sorry for joining late. Sorry.
Yes, there is one small announcement. Our next session, webinar session, will be on next Monday, that is on 1st February. The topic will be interstate river water disputes and water governance issues and challenges. This topic will be the talk will be given by our eminent faculty, eminent speaker of Dr. Srinivas Chokakola sir. He is the research chair of Ministry of Jal Shakti. Okay, friends. Thank you. Thank you. We will meet on next Monday. Thank you. Thank you. Have a good day.